Hey guys, how's it going? In today's video, we're going to be going over the 10 biggest winners and losers from Sunday's game versus the Dolphins. Now, before we get straight into the video, be sure to smash that like button, leave a comment down below, and subscribe for the best Patriots content on YouTube. Let's get straight into things, and we're going to talk about the winners first. Number 10, Jalen Mills, because I didn't really see any mistakes on his part, but we also saw that nice deflection. One of the highlights of the game. It was one good play, and I can't say he consistently played good because my eyes weren't really on him the whole time. But I think overall he had a really good game, and his Pro Football Focus grade was pretty mid-tier. So I think number 10 is definitely deserved for him. As always with all these, be sure to give me your thoughts down below if you strongly agree or disagree with one of them or whatever. Be sure to leave me a comment down below because I'd be happy to see that and discuss it with you guys. Number 9, Josh Uche, and maybe you could argue he should be higher on the list. He had some impactful plays and was definitely playing a lot better than he did in his rookie season last year. Very, very exciting to see him playing very nicely. Did you guys see him destroy that lineman right before halftime? That play was out of control good. Very exciting to see. He is a beast. Number 8, Kyle Duggar, a guy who I saw make a couple tackles for sure, and he didn't make any mistakes. In coverage, I feel like he played really good, and I definitely could see why someone could say he had a big upgrade from last season in his rookie year, also drafted the same year as Josh Uche. He actually had a 71.9 defensive grade from Pro Football Focus, which was the third best on the team. So really, really good to see there. Kyle Duggar stepping up and having a nice game for himself. Number 7, Kyle Van Noy facing his former team that let him go. He had a good game as well. Definitely saw him out there making some nice tackles, bringing some nice pressure from the defense. He had a 70.7, so he's right there behind Kyle Duggar there on Pro Football Focus. Really good to see him back in pretty much at the same form that he was back in 2019 with us. Really nice to see him back, like I said before. Kendrick Bourne, number 6. Again, a guy that just had a really nice game. You notice we had all defensive players right there. Now we're talking about some offensive players. Kendrick Bourne comes in as the 6th best offensive player that we had, 71.6 from Pro Football Focus, and he got involved for sure. I think both the top wide receivers, Aguilar and then Bourne there, played really nicely. I see a lot of people commenting on posts saying, the wide receivers or Mac Jones needs a true number 1, but guys, we were facing really good defensive backs in this game, and I think our wide receivers definitely played above expectation for sure. And on Pro Football Focus, they're ranked as some of the best players from the team. Speaking of the wide receivers, Nelson Aguilar here at number 5. He had a slightly better game than Kendrick Bourne, and you could tell between Mac Jones and him, they definitely had built a level of trust. And I think Nelson Aguilar is going to be the number 1 wide receiver, obviously, and the number 1 target for Mac Jones that he's always looking for because they built some nice trust there just in game 1. Number 4, Michael Onwenu. He was the best offensive lineman from our team as far as Pro Football Focus is concerned, and as far as I'm concerned, because I saw him playing out there very nicely. For anyone who's wondering, Shaq Mason was the second best ranked one, but it's far between Michael Onwenu and Shaq Mason, because Michael Onwenu had a 78.3 grade, which is very good. And then Shaq Mason had a 62.1. So you could tell there's a huge, massive difference between the first best and the second best offensive lineman in the game. So yeah, definitely good to see him playing good though. Again, another player who was a rookie last season. We have, let's see, 1, 2, 3 so far on this list of winners from last year's draft class. Really good to see these guys stepping up for sure. Number 3, Matthew Judon. He completely wrecked Tua on that one play where we intercepted the ball. Definitely saw that Matt Judon had absolutely demolished him. And he was really just playing flashy for the most part. I think he had a really good game, and that's why he's my number 3 winner from this week. Number 2, Adrian Phillips, our number 1 ranked defensive player according to Pro Football Focus. Adrian Phillips, and matter of fact, you know what? Our number 1 ranked player overall on the entire team, Adrian Phillips, with a 81.6. He played consistently good, especially in coverage, but also tackled nicely as well. And I saw definitely some highlight plays from him as I was breaking down some of the highlights for this game. I was doing that yesterday, and he was definitely one of the players that really popped off the stat sheet for me, and I really just saw some nice plays from him, and it seems like he was consistently good in yesterday's game. Speaking of consistently good, Mac Jones at number one. I feel like he's always number one on my list, but he's consistently outperforming expectations. And I think it makes sense that he's the number one winner because he exceeded those rookie opening starter games for a quarterback expectation. That was a tongue twister for sure. But definitely he exceeded all expectations that everybody had for him in his first opening game. And he played better than any of the rookies that played as far as quarterbacks are concerned. So to have the number 15 pick play better than, four players taken before him is definitely something to be said about. And really, I feel like he had an amazing game for the most part. Insanely accurate, really poised, great awareness. I mean, before the snap, a lot of good things are happening as well for him. Uh, Overall, just a lot of good things for Mac Jones. And overall, I think he's the biggest winner for the most part anyway. Losers. Let's go over losers. And this one was a little bit harder to come up with. And the difficult thing here is we lost the game, but it's really hard to come up with losers. And it seems like there was a lot of winners. I mean, there's some guys that even I think should have made the winners list that just didn't play better than those 10 players that were, definitely had good games. But the losers list, I was only able to come up with like a solid 5 players, really, to tell you the truth. Number 10, Dante Hightower. And for the most part, it's just because he wasn't, very flashy. So there was nothing really bad, but it was just nothing great either. But definitely a pretty solid game for him. But he still makes the losers list because so many players played good. Lawrence Guy, number 9, and this is purely based off of Pro Football Focus numbers that we got for him. He had a 44.2 overall. His tackling was good, but his run defense was really bad, and his pass rushing was just okay. So again, just a guy that didn't play terribly, but also didn't play great either. Jonnu Smith. He obviously fumbled the ball when he did like a triple flip or whatever that was that happened when he got hit and like went flying in the air. I don't really blame him for that one, but I think on the stat sheet it shows up as a fumble. Again, there's only about 5 true losers on this list, but I tried to come up with 10, so these ones don't seem that legitimate because they're not really that legitimate. These are the players that played average probably, but they made the list because so many players played good, like I said. But also, the play in the beginning, if you remember when Mac Jones, it was one of his first plays when he tossed the ball backwards and it was a fumble, and everybody's like, oh, Mac Jones made a mistake. Why was the tight end behind Mac Jones? I feel like nobody's asking that question, but obviously Mac Jones got spun around, disoriented, and then he thought he was facing forward, down the field, and he saw his tight end, so he tried to throw it to his tight end, or at least at his feet to be an incompletion. He didn't even know he was backwards because, your tight end usually isn't behind you. So I don't know what Jonnu Smith was doing there, but that's why he made my losers list. Also, his Pro Football Focus grade wasn't that good either, so there's a couple reasons there. But yeah, that one's pretty weird. Jawan Bentley, another player where I don't necessarily think he was a huge loser. I definitely saw some good plays from him too, but the Pro Football Focus grade here was just definitely not the best. He come out with a let's see, let me find him on the list here. He came in with a 42.0 rating overall, which is really bad. But I think he had some flashy plays as well. So, yeah, this is probably our first one that fairly made the losers list, I think, that definitely deserves to be there. Number 6, Chase Winovich. And my reasoning here isn't necessarily because he played bad, because he really didn't. His Pro Football Focus grade here, as I take a look, is a 57.9, which is kind of in that average range. But my thing here is that I really think he's a loser in this instance, not a loser. It always seems like I'm like calling somebody a loser. He's on the losers list because of the fact that all these young guys that were drafted after him that are younger than him are showing more talent and more potential than him. So I think he's kind of climbing in the wrong direction. He's not climbing up the depth chart. He's kind of climbing down or falling down the depth chart because these other guys are kind of overtaking him. And we noticed we didn't see as much of him. I maybe saw him on a handful of plays, whereas he used to play like 50% of defensive snaps. So something's going on with Chase Winovich, and he's definitely making my losers list because of that reason. Jawan Williams, unfortunately, needs to make the list as well here at number 5 because he had a 35.9 ranking. He only had 13 total defensive plays, 5 of which were run plays. But he gave up 26 yards on only those 13 plays, and again, 5 of which were running plays. So he gave up the 3rd most yards out of any of the defensive players in the passing game, and he was only there for 13 plays. So definitely not a good, not a good game for him. That's why he's on this list. Isaiah Wynn, there was multiple penalties here. A lot of the plays where the defensive line were, attacking and pushing on our offensive linemen, he was kind of at fault. He had a 54.1 Pro Football Focus grade, So I don't think he'd be that high for his overall play. I think it's mostly for a lot of the holding penalties. I think he had one or two that were really meaningful, so that's why he's on this list. Justin Heron or Heron, I forgot how you say his name, but he had to come in because unfortunately Trent Brown went down with an injury, and he just did not play good at all, guys, once he did come in. He had a 42.3 overall Pro Football Focus ranking here, and that's just not, that's in your bad territory for sure. So the play was overall very bad. His run blocking grade was 42.4, and his pass blocking grade was a 38.5. So definitely not what you want to see from an offensive lineman coming in. The good thing is he's not expected to be a starter, and he never was expected to be a starter in the first place. I think we brought him in from the Ravens, didn't we? Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but he kind of made the roster that way, or maybe it was a different team. I don't know. Number two, these next two are going to be obvious. You guys can probably stop watching the video because you know who I'm going to talk about. But if you want to hear what I have to say, stick around for sure. But Ramondre Stevenson, number two, the fumble that cost the team. There was also a play where he was blocking where he got absolutely destroyed. It's very sad to see him on this list, on this side of the list, because throughout our preseason list, he was on the winner side consistently, playing very well, and his debut game was awful. Let me just go down the list. He was our bottom-ranked graded player overall, even lower than Juwan Williams here. As we take a look, or we're not going to take a look, as I tell you, he had a 29 grade out of, the ranking goes from 0 to 100, and he had a 29. That's terrible. That's awful. His pass game grade was a 23.1, so even lower than his overall grade. And then get this, his pass blocking grade. Again, I mentioned that he had the one play. Let's see, he had two pass blocking plays, and he had one of which that I definitely noticed where he got absolutely destroyed. He had a 9 out of 100 on pass blocking, which is terrible. But his running grade was a 59.3 despite the fumble, so he played kind of like bad to average in the running game. The one fumble probably hurt him, because I think in the plays where he didn't fumble, he was actually playing pretty well. So this isn't the worst possible ranking ever, but it's definitely a lot of bad and only a tiny bit of good. Damien Harris is the number one loser, and honestly, he played better than Ramondre Stevenson, obviously, because his overall Pro Football Focus grade was a 69.6, which is not bad whatsoever. He had a 27 in the pass blocking, grade, which the running backs aren't really supposed to be amazing at pass blocking anyway. He had a 68 in the running game, and then in the pass catching game, he had a 75.1 ranking, which is really good. But he obviously had the game-losing fumble, so I feel like he deserves to be number one for that reason. Obviously, the Miami Dolphins were doing a nice job at punching the ball out, so I don't think all of the blame should go on the running backs for fumbling it. But definitely some of it should, and that's why they're at the top of this list, because I do blame the fumbles for the most part for the loss. I think that's the biggest thing that caused us to lose the game. Anyway, that's my winners and losers. Be sure to let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are. Would you rank anybody higher, lower, on the opposite side of the spectrum on the winner or losers list? Or is there anybody that you take off the list and, subtract and add somebody else in their place? Let me know in the comments down below any thoughts like that, and I'll be sure to get back to you guys on my thoughts back to your thoughts. Well, that's a little confusing, but whatever. Be sure to like the video. Be sure to leave a comment down below as well, again, with your thoughts. And also, as always, be sure to subscribe for the best Patriots content on YouTube. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching.